And we are live. We are
Another day,
live.
another episode. We
Exactly.
made it. I don't
We
even
are
know what
joined,
episode number this is, but
bro,
it's blast
whatever.
off time.
It is blast off time.
Yes.
Speaking of blast off time and flying, we are
Yes.
joined by Willem, human. I call him human.
Willem.
Will human. That's what
Well,
I call him.
human.
But introduce us to yourself. Let us know who you are, what you do.
All right. My name is Willem Newman. People just call me Will for short. It's easier, faster, more convenient. Uh, and yes, my last name is Human, written as Human. And everybody gets to make one joke related
What?
to that.
I'm saving
Are
mine.
we human or are we dancers?
My
That's
signs are
it.
vital.
And, yes. No, that's great. That's
You
my one
claimed your
joke.
joke, by the
Okay.
way. So
You
there you
redeemed
go.
your joke.
That's it.
Okay.
So, welcome to the show. Let us know what you do and where you come from, all the good stuff.
All right. So I'm 28. I come from South Africa, but I live in Portugal. For those who don't know, that's not a province of Spain. It's an actual country.
Ah, do people
There's a,
think that? Do
yeah,
people think, wait, Portugal and Spain are the same place?
No, it's more like a stereotype
A
because Portugal is
stereotype.
a small country next to Spain. Knows Spain, but not everybody is aware of Portugal.
Hmm. All right.
okay.
And yeah, in my daytime job, I'm a flight attendant,
Hmm.
and my hobbies include music and playing video games.
Which is where I met Will. He's a part of the Simpus Maximus.
Simpus Maximus.
That's right. He's a part of the gaming
Amazing.
crew. And
Hmm.
on top of that, uh, nothing. I don't know why I said that. There's like nothing that goes with it.
So
Anyways,
you,
that's
so you, yeah,
go
so
ahead.
you fly around, and in every destination you go, you can just game wherever you go, right? That's the fun thing. You get your laptop, and wherever you land, if you have to spend the night at a hotel, you can always
Yeah,
plug in.
so
Hmm.
most of the time when I'm abroad on layovers, I like to meet, sightsee, and explore the places I'm going. That's like one of the
Hmm.
perks and benefits of being a flight attendant. But if I'm on a really short layover, or if I'm tired, or if the crew I'm flying with isn't particularly fun or interesting,
Hmm.
or if there's just a crew that wants to stay in their hotel rooms,
Hmm.
it's easy. You can take a laptop, a tablet, or a portable video game and just pass time in the room chilling.
Hmm.
It's not bad.
So can I? So you guys switch different groups based on different planes, right? So they'll send you different assignments, or do you like stick with the same team when you're flying around in your
Uh,
routine?
Standard procedure for the most part, you'll
Hmm.
stay with the same crew for
Hmm.
the vast majority of the time. But
Hmm.
there might be exceptions. So let's say, if I'm doing a flight to a specific place, maybe one of our or two of our crew members aren't doing their first flight of the day like we do. They already did another flight. So now they're going to rest in the place where I'm going. And another crew members, which are in the destination, is going to board and replace them on the trip back. That can happen.
Okay. All right. Cool.
So
Nice.
let's get right into these big questions, which we all, I'm sure,
Big
even the
questions.
viewers and the Spotify listeners,
Phew.
they really want to know these questions. So,
They really gotta know.
like, what's the longest hour you've flown? Like, how what's the furthest you've gone? Where have you been?
I'm gonna say probably Moscow, Russia,
Oh
because
wow.
yeah, because you have to bear in mind I live in Portugal, Lisbon, which is next to Spain, and so from there to Russia is about I think a 5 hour flight, 5, 4, 6. Not entirely sure. Don't quote me on that, but it's a long flight,
Mhm.
at least for medium haul flights. It's not a
Mhm.
long haul flight because I do medium haul flights. So I don't do the ones that the transatlantic flights like to from Europe to America. I don't do
Mhm.
these. I do the
Mhm.
medium hauls, and for a medium haul, it's a long flight. Um,
Are longer
uh,
flights easier than the shorter flights, or I don't know? What's
d-
your take on it? Hmm.
Depends. It depends on the crew. Some people prefer doing those. Some people prefer not to do those.
Mhm.
Because
Hmm.
if you do a long haul flight, um, from the perspective of the crew who's working, it usually implies more meal times and services and preparations. Because if you're doing a long flight, you're probably going to have access to at least 2 meals. In medium haul flights, you're probably only going to prepare one meal. So
Mm.
for one single flight, it's going to be more. you're going to work more in one flight. But since you have to look at it at hours, so if I do a turnaround and fly from Lisbon to Amsterdam and back, and let's say that does 7 hours, 6 hours, I could do the same amount, the same equivalent in hours in one flight. So the hours are the same, but they're divided in 1 or 2 flights.
Mhm.
So
I see. That's cool.
it can end up being more or less work depending, because if you do 2 flights, then you do double the boarding, double the disembarking, safety demonstrations, safety checks, cleanup. You do all of these more times.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of relative. Some people prefer them, some people don't.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, so do you actually like? Do you have it memorized? The whole like, fasten your seatbelts and
Fasten your seatbelt to the
exercise and
left.
all that. You really?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Oh my God. Okay. Since
The
people,
safety demonstrations.
yeah. Okay. Is it possible to get you to do it right now? I'm pretty sure people miss that shit. Like it's been a while since
They do
anyone
miss
traveled
it.
anywhere.
Boy,
Just give us a brief one. Just something you'd
like
say.
I haven't done it in quite a while because I'm on layoff, so I haven't
Mhm.
worked for almost 3 months,
Uh-huh.
as air traveling is kind of stopped right now, sadly.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna do that.
No.
That's fair.
Okay. Fine. Fine.
Exit
But
to the left.
At least the
But
exit. The
that's great. We don't have to put
It's
push it.
amazing,
We don't
dude.
want to do it.
Listen,
Yeah. No.
if you don't want to do it, don't do it. But it's just because, dude, it's been a while since any of us
It's
traveled.
been a while. So wait. So tell us.
worry, I'll make
Yeah.
I'll make it up for you, and I'll tell you a funny story related to that.
Let's go.
So
Let's do it.
I've worked in 2 companies. Before I worked in Tapia, Portugal, I worked in another company, and in that company, I um, achieved the rank of purser. The purser is like the coordinator, the manager
Mhm.
of the flight of the crew inside the aircraft. So they manage, they deal out who's going to do what and when and where, how are we going to do this and whatnot. So in the previous company, I managed to achieve this position. So I was like, during the flight, I was like kind of like the boss. So I would sometimes take advantage of this. I shouldn't be saying this, and sometimes pull some pranks and do games and do shenanigans with my crew.
Like what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm that kind of guy. I did that.
Dude, that's so
So
fun.
yeah,
Wait,
yeah, because
like what? Yeah, we need to. I want to hear these
yeah.
stories.
So work can sometimes be boring, so I like to spice it up a bit and make it more fun and interesting.
On the plane.
Yeah.
That's my philosophy.
Yeah.
So I did a manner of things, from simple things to like, if I know a crew member drinks a lot of water, I'll take their water bottle without them noticing, and poke holes through it. So when they drink it, the water is gonna fall in and
Oh.
That's fun.
Yeah.
or
That's,
I will take those small packs of sugar, open it, and then put it like in their pockets all over the place. Like I would do, or take ice and throw it. Or what I would also do is, during the service, we have the trolley cart and we're giving out beverages for the passengers. So
Mhm.
the trolley is moving, but there's a flight attendant, one in front and one in the rear of the trolley moving it. And if a colleague of mine asks me, because the only the one part of it is open, the other one is closed. So if we need more beverages to refill, they need to ask me and I'll put in another one on top. So let's say they said, oh, the water bottle is empty, can you get me like another one? And I'll say, sure. I take out another bottle, unfasten it, and I'll grab it and give it to them like this. As soon as they grab it, I squeeze it, and then the water
It
comes out
pops.
and wet,
Oh,
and
oh
and,
my
and
That's
God.
funny.
and
So
then they
this
would
is
usually, yeah, and they would usually like fall a bit out, and sometimes a bit of it will drop on a passenger next to us. And if that happens, I'm immediately gonna say, excuse me, passenger, sir, I'm really sorry. My colleague is new on the job and he's still kind of nervous. I apologize. And I would I would sometimes do stuff like this.
That's so good.
Uh,
That's funny.
Okay.
Pranks on a plane. Pranks on a
on a-
plane.
Coming back to when you said the safety demonstrations, what I would
Mhm.
sometimes do is we have a small notebook which
Mhm.
has all the speeches when we do the PA announcements for the passengers to hear. And it's a speech, it's always the same every time and every flight for the safety demonstrations. And usually it's the purser who picks up the PA and does the speech, while the other flight attendants will
Oh.
distribute it for other aircraft doing the signaling.
Is it not
Since
pre-recorded? I thought it was pre-recorded.
some companies do pre-recordings.
Okay.
Tap Air Portugal and the other company I worked in doesn't. At
Mhm.
least not for the medium haul flights. They do it in the long haul flights.
Mhm.
So since I'm doing the speeches, what I would sometimes do is change because everybody's used to the speech and the order, and they do it every day. They're all almost on autopilot when they do it. And I would,
Autopilot.
yeah, because it's so automatic. You do it almost without thinking, you know.
I see what you did there.
Hey, yeah.
And I change the order and mix it
Mhm.
up. So they'll go for, let's say, the first one you signal where are the exits, two in the
Mhm.
front, two in the middle, back in the row, and then after you pick up the seatbelt and say how to fasten your seatbelt. But I would skip that part and go for the oxygen masks, which fall from the compartment above. And
He's lagging out.
Yeah, he is. It happens when we
Mhm.
game as well. Don't worry about it.
It
So
happens. Yes.
it
When he's talking
happens.
about all these declassified information
Yeah, we are
on the
talking. We are
plane,
diving into deep secrets of
deep
aircrew.
secrets, aircrew. Dude, I
Yeah,
have so many questions I need to know. I
dude,
really need
I
to
have
know.
so many questions I need to know.
Yes.
This is amazing. We'll just give him some time to come back.
What?
Am I
Mhm.
the host of this
You are
gathering?
the host. Yes.
Okay,
Now
and
we're good.
here we
Mhm.
there we go. He's back. Nice. Okay, so you were saying
sorry,
you said you would skip the seatbelt and go to the oxygen masks.
or the life vest. I would mix up and mix and match the order of the speech, and they would be like confused and they will stumble a bit, and
That's
some
funny.
people might notice and laugh.
Mhm.
But even when I was before I became a person, when I was doing the safety demonstrations, um, I would notice, like, I'd be in front of all the passengers, and I've noticed most people don't really pay attention, even though they should.
Mm.
Most people don't pay attention, so I'd sometimes make like I'd be like over dramatic with the way I present it, make
Oh,
funny faces to try and call people's attention. Some
Mhm.
people might notice and laugh.
Mhm.
that's pretty cool.
For me, I'll say I don't really pay attention when in my experience, just because I fly so much. I just get it. At this point, it's autopilot in my head, just like, okay, if
As long
anything
as you
happens,
know what to do
Mhm.
in case of an emergency, that's fine.
I guess, yeah, true, yes.
Yeah, I'd agree with that too. But okay. Here's what I want to know. Uh, what's the sanity like on the plane? So what's not the is that the word sanity?
Sanitation,
Sanitation. Yes. How like
hygiene.
Mm,
yeah
no, yes, sanitation, toiletry, and all that stuff.
yeah
So how does
like
that work, too?
how does
Mhm.
that work?
Well, overall, the aircraft is at a particularly clean place.
Mhm.
So people should be careful.
Mhm.
Like, for example, I would suggest not going about the aircraft barefoot,
Mhm.
especially if you're going
Oh
to the bathroom.
Mhm.
I wouldn't recommend that.
Please don't. Mhm. And
Uh,
for the rest of the passengers, don't do it.
yeah.
exactly. Like, I mean, even just for your own well-being, don't don't do that.
You've seen people actually go barefoot to the toilet?
I've seen people go barefoot to the toilet.
Oh my god.
I've seen it.
I don't know how they do it. Like the amount of nerves. They either have the best immune system in the world or they, just really don't care.
They
But
don't care.
but what is like we
The
talked about
sanitation.
this. Yeah, we talked about this earlier and what's I didn't get to ask you this. What's the cleanest place on the aircraft and what's like the nastiest place, like the most disgusting?
Well, that's easy. The cleanest place in the aircraft is the cockpit.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay. So
But
not
Because
even
nobody
when
like
but
yeah.
nobody except the crew are allowed to go there. So, but
Mhm.
where everybody else in the passengers have access to, the cleanest part, uh, I guess the upper compartments where the bags are. Maybe I'm not really sure because
I guess it's
Yes,
mainly where
okay.
humans don't go.
Yes, I
exactly.
see. Yes,
And
where
that
humans
was
don't go.
my human joke. There you go.
Hey, there you go. Right,
I
you
used
got it
mine.
in. So,
Nice.
so when you're hanging out in the cockpit, when we're not, so when the flight attendants aren't out and about, which is a lot of the time in the flight, when you're not walking around with food or doing your demonstrations, you're just hanging out in the cockpit with like your crew members.
No.
So what's happening? Yeah, what else are you guys
Throughout
doing?
time,
Hmm.
because there's been unfortunately, a lot of accidents that happened. People are restricting access to the cockpit for safety and for security reasons.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I would rather not mention them because they're pretty
That's
tragic.
fair.
but many things happen. So contact with the flight deck is limited as much as possible, at least in theory. This is the procedure. However, we're humans, we like to communicate, and people are usually friendly. So at least the crew will contact and engage and sometimes go into the cockpit to be with them. But at least for passengers, like people would say like, oh, like I've never been in aircraft, or I've never been to the cockpit. Is it okay to take a peek? Like in the old days, this was acceptable. This was
Yes.
acceptable, and this was fine. Actually, pre 2001, the cockpit doors, besides not even being locked, they would just leave the doors open. Like you could be in the cabin sitting, you could turn your head and you could see the
The
cockpit.
pilot.
But
Whoa.
everything changed for safety reasons.
I
So
mean, damn. Bin Laden
Yes.
really ruined it on the rest of us flyers, I guess.
I don't know what to say. Yeah, that would have been cool. I've always wanted to see what it's like in a cockpit.
That's,
So what do you guys
yeah.
see? So the crew members don't. So what do you do in between when we don't see you? Like when you
Yeah.
guys
okay,
vanish?
so
Yes.
during boarding, takeoff, and landing, we have defined procedures. We're always busy. During actual cruising altitude, if we're not busy, we'll be busy preparing the service for preparing for the meal service, and then we'll execute the meal service, and then do the clearance and clean up afterwards. After we do this, we're basically like in, I don't know, I guess I'll call it free time, because we've done our duty for that flight. At least our commercial duty, which is the service. Then we're pretty much free to go and do what we want. We can just hang out. We usually just hang out in the galley and chill in the galley and talk with each other, or read the magazine or whatever. Sometimes we do routine checks like the lavatories, and we'll maybe go through the aisles like once or twice every now and then to make sure everything's okay, everybody needs anything. But we'll mostly be busy because people usually click on the button to call us to ask for a glass of water or something.
It's true. Yeah, that's cool. That's fun. All right.
Yo, by the way, I am the asshole that keeps requesting water, and I'm the thirsty little shit that keeps pressing. I have to say,
You're the person every flight attendant complains about.
That's
me.
That's good.
That's
funny.
me. What can I mean, I'm thirsty. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to come all
No,
the way
that's
back?
fine.
You guys wouldn't let me.
Wait, well, okay. I was going to get to that. I guess it depends on the policies of each airline. I would much prefer, from my point of view, and value people who, especially if they want to drink often or like to drink recurring, like say you're very thirsty or it's very hot, it's perfectly fine to get up as long as the seatbelt sign indicates you can get up to go back to the galley and ask for water, and I can give you water. I'd much rather prefer people come to the galley and ask, I need something, can you give it to me? And I'll give it to you, instead of doing what we call in Portuguese, the expression is, you know those Olympic swimming pools? They
Yeah.
have like these lines, and they swim back and forth.
Yeah.
So we have a Portuguese word for that, when you swim and go back and forth. So it's like we're going in the aisle and we're going back and forth all the time to deliver what the passengers need.
Yes.
So instead of doing that all the time, if they can come to me and I'll give you what you need, it's easier for us, you know.
Yeah, you know why I always do this is because there was a time I remember I went to the back and I didn't want them to come keep walk because I know that like they're humans too, you know. So I went and I was like, "Can I please get a Sprite?" And they were like, "Okay, please go back to your seat, press the button, and we will bring it for you." I was like,
Oh, okay, that's interesting. I guess that depends on the company policy or culture, I guess.
I don't know. I was weirded out. I was
But
like,
it's perfectly fine and acceptable, especially because during flights in the aircraft, we dehydrate a lot more. So it's important to drink a lot of water.
Yep.
That's why it might be a bit inconvenient and annoying, but I won't ever get mad at anyone because I understand we dehydrate a lot and we need to drink the water.
Fair enough.
Like we're encouraged to drink water throughout the flight as well. Usually every flight attendant will take like a liter or liter and a half bottle, and throughout the day, throughout the flight, we'll try and drink through it.
So okay, so here's another question I really want to know. what are your like tips and tricks of flying? Like, what are secret stuff we can do, but like flight attendants don't tell us that we can do?
Oh,
The
flight
hacks.
hack, flight
Yeah,
hacks. Yeah, I was
Flight
flight
gonna
hacks.
say.
No,
hacks.
this is
Yeah,
important. Yes. Yes.
Okay, so first flight hack. Uh, Before I tell you what it is, it'd be funny if I ask you what, because you talked about hygiene and sanitation.
Mm,
What do you think is the dirtiest part of the aircraft?
lavatory.
The
I'm
bathroom.
guessing. Yeah, the bathroom.
Lavatory.
That's a very good guess, and in fact, it is. However, what if I told you your tray table was one of the dirtiest places in the aircraft?
There you go. Mind blown. Amazing.
Because
People
everybody
put their
uses
feet up
them.
there.
Put your feet, you
Yes.
put your hands up there, and everybody knows what you do with your hands.
Dude,
You
I've
know,
been sleeping on those tables in almost every flight I can think of,
there you
except
go.
for that
You and
one flight, and
everybody
I'll get
else.
to. Dude, what the hell? Seriously, we eat on that though. How is that not clean?
We do everything on that because we do everything with our hands. We do everything on the tray tables.
Oh my god.
So it makes sense.
Mhm.
I mean,
I mean,
Wow.
I don't know
Yeah.
what
yeah.
So
to
in
say.
between,
Yeah.
in between flights, they don't clean those things, right?
Okay, so obviously cleaning crews do their best to tidy up the aircraft as much as possible, given the amount of time they have.
Mhm.
Nowadays, in the busy world we're living in, an aircraft that is still and parked in the airport isn't generating revenue. So an
Mhm.
aircraft needs to be flying.
Mhm.
So it's true.
Mhm.
So as soon
Mhm.
as the aircraft is stopped and passengers have disembarked, the cleaning crew comes in and cleans everything up. But in about an hour or half an hour, we're going to be boarding again
Oh,
to go to
what?
another destination. Yeah,
So
that can happen.
and you have half an hour, and they do the
Or
whole
less.
thing, or
Less. No,
less
I've never seen a cleaning crew in between flights.
in between
Very
flights. Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
cleaning crews usually clean the aircraft in like they have like a 10 minutes windows to clean the aircraft.
The whole aircraft.
Well, it depends on the
That's funny.
aircraft,
Yeah,
right?
no, I'm sure. Yeah.
I travel on mid haul,
Mhm.
so like the A320 or Boeing 737, which has like it has like 130. Some else have 150 seats. So it's not a large aircraft. So 10-15 minutes with a cleaning crew that can vary from 3 people to 7 people.
Mhm.
Just make a fast sweep on the aircraft, like
Now you guys know.
picking things
up.
up from the ground,
Mhm.
changing the waste bins and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So they don't have the time to clean everything spotless.
Mhm.
Probably like the last flight of the day that the aircraft's going to do that day, which is usually in the evening. So they will have the time, and they will make a more thorough um, cleaning of the aircraft.
So the cleanest time to fly is at night.
In the morning.
Well, the first flight that the
first
aircraft
flight.
does
Oh.
afterwards, yeah.
Mhm. Whatever that is. All right.
Again,
Cool.
this varies from company to company.
Company, of course. Yeah. So in the 10 minutes, right? You guys are cleaning up. They do the whole like oil, gas, oil, like sanitation. I don't know what happens in those 10 minutes. Everything.
It's pretty amazing. So I'm gonna tell something interesting because people like to make
Yeah.
fun and point at the world of aviation for its tardiness, which I think is a bit unfair
Mhm.
because there is so many variables to take into account.
Mhm.
Not only the cleaning, the crew needs to make safety and security inspections on the aircraft to make sure it's safe and make sure all the equipment are right. So, for example, the crew needs to inspect every single fire extinguisher to make sure the validation date is right, it hasn't expired, and it's ready and able to work in case of a fire. So we need to inspect the aircraft. The flight crew, the pilots also have to do multiple inspections on the equipment on the aircraft to make sure it's safe and ready to go and plan the flight ahead. So the fueling, the people need to fuel the aircraft. Um, the handling crew need to put all the bags inside in the cargo hold. And they need to communicate with the boarding gate for the passengers that are going to come in. There is so many variables, so many things to take into account during this whole, let's say, web of variables in this whole hierarchy. If one thing goes wrong or there's a small error problem, it's going to snowball effect and tardy or delay the aircraft.
Mhm.
You see, that's why it's very easy. There's lots of rules and procedures, and we do our best to have our aircrafts depart on time. But so many things can go wrong, small things that can amount up. And especially because the more delayed an aircraft is, the more money it's going to lose. So let's say if an aircraft is usually between 10 to 15 minutes delay, aren't considered like a delay per se, because it's almost like standard at this point. But let's say you're 20 minutes delayed or 25 minutes delay. That's going to be a huge loss for money that can go from thousands to tens of thousands of dollars.
How come?
Much more.
What do you mean?
Much more. Well, I can't explain to you the details because I don't know the technical details. This was explained to me from somebody who knew better about this. Because if you arrive late, you lose money. There's.
Is it like insurance something? I don't know. Is it like
For
insurance?
example,
One of the
for
things.
example, because also there's slots that you have between the airports. So let's say you're scheduled to depart at this time and then arrive at this time in said airport. If you arrive late, you can miss like the window of opportunity you had where you were supposed to land there. So now you need to occupy another window, and that window must maybe occupied by somebody else. You see, so
and you get like fined or something maybe,
and
right?
people in the air, in the control tower need to manage this, which is another job profession that's really high stress. It's true. Like their average working hours for a day is like 4 or 5 hours, and like every 45 minutes they need a break because they need to concentrate a lot on who's gonna do what, who's gonna go where. So there, like I said, there's lots of variables. So if your aircraft is 10-15 minutes late, just relax, it happens. If it's like way more than that, okay. But also what I'm gonna ask is, if it's late, don't blame the crew.
They're not flying the damn thing.
Because more often than not, when aircrafts are late, people usually get mad at the crew, which I understand because your aircraft is late, and who is in front of you representing the company? It's us. Even though we have absolutely nothing to do with it, and we want to get there just as much as you do. Since we're the one in front of you, you're gonna complain to us. And most of the time, it's not much we can do except say, "Sorry, sir. Is there anything I can do to help you? Let me know. But I'm sorry." You know. So don't lay it down on us.
It's true. This is something that seems common, and it should make sense because, I mean, like, you guys aren't flying the plane, right? So it's not really your fault. Or I can't think of a reason where it would be your fault. I don't know. Could there be a reason where?
There could be a reason. It's very rare that an actual delay is caused by the crew. It's very rare. It could happen, like say a crew member got injured for whatever reason, or let's say a crew member that was scheduled to go on the aircraft is absent. He didn't show up and nobody knows about him, and now they need to call in a replacement, and now we're waiting for a replacement to arrive. Or let's say what can happen is flight remember when I talked about the amount of hours you can do of work and the amount of hours you need to rest afterwards. So let's say I was on layover and I'm gonna fly back, but the amount of hours of rest hasn't been completed yet. So I need those hours of rest to be completed. But let's say the company said, okay, we gotta go now. And then the crew might say, well, we still are in our period of our resting period, so we can't go now, which might have been caused by a delay. So let's say yesterday I arrived and we arrived very late. So now the amount of time that we arrived that we're late, we need to compensate and add to our resting time. Okay. But that's going to cause the flight we were going to operate to delay as well, because we can't fly it back already that soon. A very specific situation, but it could happen.
I know, very specific. Okay, all right, cool. Yeah, don't get mad at the crew members. It's become I feel like people think they're like in a freaking restaurant or something when they're in a plane. It's like, you know what I mean? It's not waiter, like get mad at the waiter, but it's not like, it's like,
it's not,
as you said, like back in the day.
Fault.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's true.
But let's go back to the original question, which was flight hacks.
Flight hacks. More of those.
Man, I was really gonna think about this. I mean, there used to be this flight hack. I wasn't aware of this. There used to be this flight hack where people could. So let's say you want to fly to your destination, but it's not a direct flight. You have to do a stop at another destination,
Transit.
and then yes,
Mhm.
transit. We have a different word for it in Portuguese, and I couldn't remember the English word. So you have to transit. So you go from point A to B first, and then C, which is your final destination. So what you can do is sometimes these transit flights are usually cheaper. So what you can do is than the direct flights. So what you can do is you can pick a flight where your actual destination where you want to go is the flight that's actually just the point B transit. So you go to there, and then you just disembark. Even though you
Yes.
were supposed to go to C, you go to B, and then you
Mhm.
leave. So, but the only way this is going to work is if you don't take carry-on. You can only take carry-on luggage if you on your person. You can't put it in the cargo compartment, in the cargo hold. Sorry, because it's going to go to your point C. So you can't take lots of big bags with you. This was a small loophole that people figured out a few years ago, and there was an actual site on the internet which told you like the best flights, times, and places where you could do this.
Oh,
But
yeah.
but the airlines didn't like this, and I think they sued it or copyrighted or something.
Yes.
So this was a trick you could do.
All right.
But besides that, I mean, I guess there's only really small. I mean, I'd say if you're nice and polite to the flight attendants, they'll be much more inclined to help you with what you
Mhm.
need. So
Mhm.
let's say you have a problem or issue, you need help with something. The more polite you are with them, the more motivated they will be to help you.
Do
I
I
guess.
do I really need to turn my phone off when I get on the plane?
Okay, so about that, there's many studies about that, and there's a bit of diverging opinions. Some people say um, it's perfectly safe. Some people say, well, there's a small, slight chance that it might interfere with the equipment of the aircraft. So based simply on the small chance, people say just to be safe, let's not do it. Again, that depends on the aircraft, on the airline policy. Some will say don't. Some say okay, fine, whatever. I guess you can. Depends on the aircraft policy
Okay.
of the
Ellie,
company.
you got any life hacks you want to share with us, or flight hacks that you do on planes that might be helpful?
I mean, I'll be honest. I just want to bring it to this point that I haven't flown in a very long time because of the current situation. I don't know if like you can tell us about how that change happened, how that affected like your flying experience, like if things were tense before, when like COVID was spreading around in flights. How did that like what was the experience going through that? Willem, if you can speak on that, I don't know. He's glitched out.
Yep, he lagged out
Yes,
again.
he
Yeah,
lagged
that
out
happened.
again. Yeah, I thought he was listening to me very like
Yeah,
carefully. He was like, "Okay,
yeah.
yes."
It's okay. It happens a
That's
lot.
funny. I
But
can't.
oh, and
Oh, he's
he
gone.
seemed to be disconnected. That's
Dude, I
fine.
think he just doesn't want to answer this question. I feel like every time I try to bring up this question, they just get shut down.
No, it's not that. His internet sometimes like it's
In
terrible.
Portugal?
It's
In
Portugal.
Portugal? Mhm.
Portugal is not a country. It's Portugal, Eddie.
Portugal?
No, that's just no. Yeah.
Um,
Dude, do you, what are you
um,
doing? I'm trying to talk, dude. No, but here's what I do a lot on flights since we're on this topic.
Mhm.
Every time I order a drink, they usually like open the can and they pour it in the thing, right? So I usually stop them and I say, "Hey, just give me the can," and they just give it, right? And he's
Just give you
back.
the can. And he's back.
Sorry.
All right.
Welcome back.
They cut you
Don't
off.
worry, don't worry. They
They
don't.
didn't
They
want you
don't want
spilling your
us to know.
secrets.
Yeah, they don't want us to know, but we
That's
will
why we
know.
need to know. That's why we need to know. Tell us. Mhm.
So okay, so basically for this last 2 minutes, I just said all the most important secret life hacks. I can't really say though, but I just said it.
Wait,
What?
so wait, what?
What?
Oh, you're
Hey,
kidding.
Willem. Oh no! All right, all
Oh
right.
man,
I don't know if
wait.
you heard. I don't know if
Go
you
ahead.
heard the question I asked before we got cut off. I was talking
The
about like your experience with COVID, basically. and like
How affected the flight world and how
mhm.
affected
just
you
tell
in the flight
just your
world?
story. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, my last flight was in March.
Mhm.
When it was still starting and people were gaining awareness of it, but still
Mhm.
not taking it seriously. And during the month of March, flights continued on as we usually did. Later, towards the end, later in March, we would use gloves. We wouldn't use masks, but we would use gloves. Hand sanitizers would be um, procured on the aircraft for us. There were small measures were taken at that point. But after March, I've been in layoff since then. Uh, so I'm not. So now the current flights they're ensuring much more protective measures than what they did when I was still flying. Because I haven't flown in quite a while.
Mhm.
I guess you could say I'm grounded.
There you go. All right.
Let's see how many like airline and airplane puns we can fit in this episode.
Oh boy.
So let's
Yes.
let's take off to a whole new topic and discuss weird situations on planes. So what's the weirdest thing you've seen on plane other than people going to the toilet barefoot, which is disgusting. If you
Well, I've
do
seen
this,
somebody go to the toilet on a handstand.
wait, what?
No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
we got him. I was like,
Um,
I was
what
trying
is
to
going on?
compute. Yeah, I was like, how do you like?
no,
Portico.
no, no. Um,
Okay.
like I would say the most weird but most memorable moment that I've ever had was when I was working in the previous company. I was still a purser. It was me and my small crew. We were boarding in Morocco,
Uh huh.
like 6 a.m. It was still dark in Morocco, 6 7 a.m. on the return flight to Lisbon, and we were boarding passengers like any other flight. Uh, but one of the later passengers who boarded in, I saw because I'm close to the door and I can see like the tarmac and the airport close by. Somebody, uh, someone from the handling crew pushing someone in a wheelchair. Like, okay, we have a reduced mobility, low chair passenger. Like, okay, fine. He came up the steps. As soon as he entered, I greeted him, and the first thing he told me was, "Excuse me, can I use the bathroom?" I'm like, sure, it's right next to you. Went into the bathroom, and he stayed there for like 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, like for a long while. We finished boarding, and afterwards he came out. And as soon as he opened that door, it smelled really bad. It smelled awful.
Oh
Like I
man.
don't need to specify, but it smelled really bad. I haven't smelled anything that bad in a long time. Like I kid you not.
Yikes. Uh
Yeah. And
huh.
so he made his way to his seat. He made his way to his seat. And then I go to the bathroom. I'm like, what? I I I I I emptied a spray can in the bathroom, closed the bathroom. Uh, but unfortunately, the smell was
Not willing
the
to leave.
the smell was developing also in the cabin because of said passenger. And
Ooh.
my crew were complaining, and eventually some passengers, 2 or 3 passengers, came back to the galley to me and complained to me about it. And I'm like, okay, this is getting out of hand. And I contact yeah, and I contact the captain and told him about the
Oh,
situation.
yeah. What do you
Yeah.
tell him? Wait, so what do you tell him? Like, you're talking to the captain, and what do you
How do
say?
you say? You go like someone dropped a deuce and it's like stinking the plane, or how do you like? What do you?
Well, I said it in a more politically correct way
Oh.
that we were dealing with a smell issue back here.
That's good.
Yeah, because I told him this is a problem because he said, well, I'm afraid. I mean, we can't deny a passenger right to transportation based on his smell. But then I told him, well, that is true, but at the same time, all the other passengers on board paid for a ticket, and you pay not only for transportation but you pay for comfort,
Mhm.
and this is kind of compromising that. It was just unfair for the other passengers, so we need to do something. So I suggested, okay, so what if we are still have a few minutes scheduled before we depart. So what we did, the idea I suggested to him, and then what we did was I went up to the passenger. First of all, before all of this, before I even called the captain, I tried to instruct him to switch seats because he was in the middle of the cabin to go to the end of the cabin close to the galley. So at least the smell would be concentrated at the back and not in the middle of the whole cabin. But as soon as he got up, I saw a brown stain on the seat.
Oh no! No!
Yeah. So
I
as
don't
soon
know.
as he got up, I said,
Yes.
"Okay, wait, sir, it's fine, don't worry, you can sit back down."
Yeah,
Put
just
another
stay,
person there.
stay in your deuce, bro. Well,
So
how would you explain it to the person who was actually supposed to sit in that seat? Do you tell him, yo, there's a
exactly,
shit stain on the
no,
chair?
I couldn't do that. So I had to leave him there. I had to leave him there. So what we ended up doing was I told the passenger to come with me. He was an older man. It's
Oh.
hard to explain. I don't know if
Oh,
he had um like if he was slow, like if
Mhm.
he was like semi-retarded, if he had Down syndrome or something. He was a bit slow. Like I'm
Mhm.
trying to be politically correct when I said it's like medically he
Mhm.
was a bit
Mhm.
slow.
Mhm.
But he was nice and friendly. He made no issue about this. And I told him, well, we have a bit of a problem here. Uh, so I'm gonna ask you. We have time. Don't worry. I'm gonna ask you to go back into the airport. The crew's gonna take you. Go back to the terminal. Do what you gotta do, and and wear a new change of clothes. We will wait for you, and you can get back into the aircraft, and we'll be on our way. Is that okay? And he said yes. So he left, went back to the terminal, to the aircraft. We waited 10 minutes for him. During this time, we asked for a cleaning crew to come and clean, but they couldn't provide it for us. So my crew had to clean that up.
oh boy.
So I give I at the end of the flight on the flight report after I wrote this down, like telling like I want to congrat my crew for doing this because they didn't have to. It's not in our job, it's not in our contract. We didn't need to do that, but they did that. So I'm very proud of them. That was very nice of them. 10 minutes later, he comes back, new set of clothes, perfectly fine. I'm like, okay, that's it. Get on board, let's go. And then we were back on our way back to Lisbon. Unfortunately, halfway through the flight, he went back to the bathroom,
Oh God.
and it happened all over again. It
Number
happened.
two.
It
It's a
happened all
trap.
over again. But at this point, I couldn't do anything about it. So just
He defeated the plane.
The
At this point,
one
yeah.
man took on the whole Boeing. Was it a Boeing or an A320?
no, it was A319 or 20.
Oh, okay.
Or
So
it's like the Boeing 373, maybe a bit smaller.
so do
Uh,
crew members get as excited as passengers when they find out they're like on a brand new plane?
well, yeah, I guess it is kind of exciting. TAP Air Portugal got a few new aircrafts, and
Mhm.
whenever I got to operate one of them, it was kind of exciting because it's new, it's different. Each aircraft has small differences between
Yeah.
and among them. So if it's new, because most aircrafts are older than you would think. Most aircrafts currently active are 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old.
Mhm.
But if you get a new one, it's like you get it like when you get that new car and get that new car smell. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
it's new and flashy and shiny. It's nice and
Mhm.
exciting.
Mhm.
Yeah, man. Because like flights from Kuwait to Jordan is like a 1 hour, 1 hour and a half flight, right? So that I never get the chance to like be on a new airplane. Never. It's usually the old airplane, the
Yeah.
ones that still have the cigarette ashtray,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I like,
Wait, you used to smoke on the plane? That used to be a thing you could do?
yeah, they
Okay.
used to be allowed to
Yeah.
smoke.
So back in the old days, you could smoke, but then quickly they changed that for certain security reasons
Yes.
because
Uh-huh.
I don't need to explain why. But even modern aircrafts will
Mhm.
still have them. So don't think it's weird or anti-productive when you see the no smoking signs or those small built-in ashtrays against the walls or the doors. It's there not because you can, it's there because of the simple principle that it rather that you have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
So if
get
someone just
you.
pull out a cigarette on a plane, they have an ashtray for it. That's the reason.
It's more like
Mhm.
just in case for backup. But if you smoke, if you're caught smoking on an aircraft,
Yeah.
you will get fined,
Yes.
and police will escort you on your when you arrive at your destination. It's very serious business. Don't do
Does
it.
that happen? Yeah. Does that? I've never
It
like
happened.
in all my
It happened.
flights. Yeah. Uh huh.
Yeah,
It
You
happened.
same. I,
with you? Have you ever seen it
Uh,
happen? Mm-hmm.
I've had a situation where we smell smoke coming from the lavatory, but
Lavatory.
and
Mm-hmm.
uh, we think it was one or two passengers who did it. Like we really think it was them, but since we didn't technically have evidence, we couldn't really do anything about it. But you know when you know it's that person, but you
Mm-hmm.
don't have evidence for it,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
we confronted him and
Mm-hmm.
told him that, but he feigned ignorance. But we did give him like a warning, like slap on wrist, don't do that, because it's
Don't do it.
serious business. It's
Mhm.
very
It
serious
is.
business. Do not do that.
Mhm.
Like
What is
people
so? What
trying,
can happen? Yeah. So what could
like
happen? I mean,
people
what
try
is
and
it?
figure out tricks not to do it.
Mhm.
Like they would go to
Mhm.
the lavatory, take like a small cup with them, put it against the detector, and then try and smoke. Or some people would constantly flush, smoke and constantly flush, so that it can take the smoke in.
Flight hacks. Flight hacks. Don't do this. Don't do this. Why
But
should we
don't do
not do
that.
this? Yeah. Why should we
You
not
should
do that?
you should not do
Now
that
that you
because
told us how to do it, tell us why not. Hmm.
you should not do that because if you constantly
Yeah.
push
Why not?
suction, you're forcing the machine to constantly work. You're gonna overheat it, which can lead to some problems. So you should really not do that.
Mhm.
You should not smoke at all. Um, my father mentioned me a story when, as soon as boarding started, because my dad is also a flight attendant. Uh, as soon as he was boarding a crew, a man came in and quickly asked, "Where's the bathroom?" He said, "Right over there." And he went to the bathroom. After boarding, he went to said bathroom, and it smelled like smoke, like a heavy smoke, like
Hmm.
no kidding. And he went back to that passenger and said, "You are smoking in the bathroom. You cannot do that." But the passenger was being very rude and arrogant with him in response, and my dad wasn't having none of his shit. So he said, "Okay, well now um, we're going to deboard you now because of that. We're going to disembark you now because of that, because you can't do that and it's illegal." Because he was going to like give him a warning and tell him like, "Don't do that."
Hmm.
Like, but since he was being so rude and arrogant, he said, "Okay, well." He informed the captain and told him the situation. The captain said, "Do what you think is best." And he said, "Well, now you gotta go." As soon as he said that, he got like on his knees and prayed and said, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Well,
Too late. Should have thought of your words
it,
carefully.
Does
yeah,
that?
you should.
Whoa. Does that happen where you like disembark people, or is that very rare that something like that would
It's
happen?
rare because
Mm.
you need to have a really good reason for that. Because when you board an aircraft, what you essentially do is sign an invisible contract. Because
Mm.
there's things you have the right to, like the meal and the service and the transportation. But then there's also things you can't do. You have to comply with safety regulations and safety instructions that the crew gives you.
Hmm.
And if you don't comply, we can tell you to leave. And if you do, you don't get how do you say a
Refunded.
refund. Yeah, you don't get any of that. No, no.
Hmm.
I don't know if you heard what's happened with Virgin Airlines, like last year, 2 years ago, where they were like overbooking flights,
On
Mhm.
and
purpose.
then on purpose they'd overbook flights,
Yeah.
and then people would get in and they'd say, "Sorry, there's no room for you. Get out." Basically, yeah.
Yeah, well,
So that
that's
hmm
that's a
that was a
practice.
controversy that was happening.
Yeah, that's well, airlines have different practices that they do to get
Hmm.
more money, and that is risky because they can make more money, but then these
Yes.
situations can arise
Hmm.
where like, "But I paid for this seat, but now you're telling me I can't," and that isn't fair.
Hmm.
Like, even I'm gonna tell that isn't fair.
That's
That's
not
not
right.
right practice.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah, some of them do questionable practices, unfortunately.
Hmm.
Okay. Here's what I want to ask. Have you seen the movie Non-Stop? It's
Uh,
Liam Neeson acted in this movie.
On a plane.
Yeah, on a plane.
Have you seen
man,
Snakes on a
I've
Plane?
seen snakes on a plane.
Snakes
I
on
mean,
a
who
plane.
hasn't
There you
seen
go.
snakes on a plane? Come
Hey,
on. But
motherfucking
but
snakes
the
on this
concept
motherfucking plane. Hmm.
but the concept I was trying to get at is, are there undercover cops that act as passengers on the flight? Like, is this a real thing, or is this like a?
Okay, so that's the air marshals. So in Europe, for the most part, no.
Hmm.
Portugal at least doesn't enforce that. We don't have that law. We don't do that. Some countries may. I think in Europe we don't really do that. They might do that in the States. I think the States might do that.
Mhm.
So you will have somebody incognitus, but who is a policial authority for safety and security reasons. And if anything happens, he can step in. Okay, um, but we don't practice really that for the most part in Europe. It's more of a
Mhm.
states thing.
Okay, that's a good question.
But it is real. They can do that in the states. I don't think as often as people think, but yeah.
Snake, so
Interesting.
snakes on a plane. Is it true they banned all movies where like with planes in planes? Like you can't watch snakes on a plane, or you can't watch. I can't think of
Non-stop?
other
Because I watched
non.
non-stop on a plane, so I
Oh,
don't
so
know.
you can watch. Okay, then that's fair. I don't know.
Yeah, like that's where I
Mhm,
watched it. I don't know. Maybe,
mhm.
maybe.
I
Are you
I always
searching this up?
imagine. I always imagine they'd canceled. They'd can.
You
They
search?
canceled like snakes on a plane. I feel like you could not watch that
Yeah.
on a plane.
No,
Yeah,
you know.
that
Maybe you
might
can.
not be a good idea.
I mean, listen. I remember when I went on a cruise ship, the woman that was singing in the opera was like literally kicked out of the ship for singing the Titanic song, and it was like that. That I guess it would make sense. But she's like, I remember, I remember this because she was like, I was told I wasn't allowed to sing this song, but I am such a huge fan of Celine Dion, and she
Oh my
started
god!
singing it, and the
Which
like
one? My heart will
My
go
my
heart
on.
heart
will
will
go
go
on.
on. Yeah, and even the guys who were playing the instruments were looking at her like,
The violins are like,
yeah, yeah, like,
Is she for
are
real?
you serious? Like, yo, I don't think, dude. You know what's funnier?
Mhm.
The reaction of the crowd. They're all just like, is she for real? Like, is she for real? For real? Like,
Mhm.
she was kicked out of
Yeah,
the like on the
that's kind
next
of
floor.
awkward singing
Dude,
Yeah.
the Titanic song on a
on,
cruise ship. It's kind of
dude,
awkward.
I promise you, it happened, and I was the only one laughing. I was like, I can't
I mean,
believe.
I would find it funny
Yeah,
personally.
that I would find it funny too.
I found it funny. I was laughing. My mom was like, "Yo, like stop this, stop, like stop laughing." I was like, "Mom, I can't. Like, do you not understand what's happening right here? Like, she's singing the Titanic song on a cruise ship. You know, like, how do you not find this funny?" But
That's funny.
speaking of funny, what's the funniest situation you've seen happen on a plane?
The funniest situation.
Yeah, like we got a situation. This is like funny.
Uh,
Snakes on a
oh,
plane.
oh boy, please no. Uh, well, there one of the last flights. I think it was the last flight I did when I was one of the later flights I did in the previous company. I transported on my aircraft a group of women uh, who were either doing a bachelor party or a newlyweds party,
Mm-hmm.
but it was two women, right, that got married. They were Spanish, and they
Interesting.
were acting like those spring break crazy people that like just want to party.
On
So
a
the
plane.
mood was very festive on that aircraft.
Uh-huh.
I thought it was funny. I enjoyed it personally. I
Oh,
thought it was
that's
funny.
fun. That
That's
sounds
I
fun.
liked
fun.
it. And
What were they doing? Yeah.
they had these weird clothes on, a weird wig, and somebody drew like like a mustache and a beard on the one lady. It was really weird. But because I thought, okay, this is interesting, this is fun. So I also like in the speeches that you do, I wouldn't follow the standard speech. I would
Mhm.
improvise, and I would say some weird silly things like
Mhm.
to joke and play with the passengers who were on that flight. Because since the mood was very festive, everybody's laughing, enjoying themselves. So before we did the safety demonstrations, I said, "Ladies and gentlemen," because my colleague went to the front in front of them to do the safety demonstration. Said, "Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention for the lovely Joanna, who is going to do the safety demonstrations for all of you this evening?" Like I would
Yeah.
present her in this kind of way.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And during the demonstrations, I would also, change things up a bit. Another thing I would do is I would look at them because they're looking back at me while I'm doing the safety demonstrations. I would do like weird faces and do weird things to make them laugh in front of the passengers. Um, yeah, but that was a very fun and interesting
That's
flight.
fun. Mhm.
Okay, here I want the truth here. Do you guys like? Because when you hear people when they're talking on PA system and everything. Like
Mm.
their voices are sometimes like it's not clear. So do you guys do it on purpose or like?
No. Well, the interphone itself kind of like, I wouldn't say distort or roboticizes it, but let's just say the sound quality isn't amazing.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so even if you speak in a normal voice, it won't come out super clearly and crisp. It won't. But bear in mind, it's not. It's more because we do so many flights every day, multiple times a day. We do the same speech over and over and over.
Okay.
We get kind of we enter just in like I mentioned, like those at autopilot where you're just like, okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard our flight to Newark. The flight will take 22 hours. And they'll just speak like
Yeah.
that.
Do you ever do it on purpose? Like you just go like, "This is General You just like you make it sound like as like you make sure people don't know what you're saying. Did you ever do it on purpose?
No, I did the opposite. I
Uh-huh.
would sometimes make things like I would be on the public address. I'd like lean in and look at the cabin, and when I make the announcement at the beginning of the flight, like the welcoming announcement, like welcome aboard, ladies and gentlemen, on TAP Air Portugal. Our current flight. So let's say the flight is actually to Paris.
Mhm.
I'm gonna say our flight to New York will take 6 hours, and I'll go on with the speech as normal. But I would look at the cabin, and people would be like raising their heads, like, "Wait, what? What are we doing?
Wait,
What?"
where are we going? New York? What?
And then everybody's getting confused. Yeah, I would sometimes do stuff like that.
Nah, that's fun. That is funny.
That's
Anyways,
fun. And
we
wait,
have
so you
hit-
fly? So you fly mostly commercial aircrafts, right? Not like private ones,
No,
rocket
no,
ships. No, none of that.
not
You know,
just commercial.
Mhm.
only.
Well, he's looking at me funny. Are astronauts basically like flight attendants? Are they the same thing, kind of?
No. They're much. Astronauts are scientists.
Okay.
what?
I mean,
I don't know. You guys fly around in the air. I don't know if there's like similar.
Well,
No,
they stay in the air. Astronauts go into space, my friend.
I know, dude. One
they
day,
get
we'll
pretty high.
one day we'll fly to exactly. One day we'll fly to Mars, and then Willem will be
Our
on the
flight
rocket ship.
attendant, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, 10 hours to the moon. Yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah, that would be.
This
That would
is
be.
this is the purser speaking. My name is Willem. If you need any assistance or help, don't call me because I don't care.
That's great. All right. On
Anyways,
that note,
we've reached
we're
our
done.
1
Time's
hour
up.
mark. Thank you so
Oh,
much
yes.
for
Thank you
coming
so
on.
much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Really
having me.
amazing.
This
course.
was so fun. Obviously,
This
I
was
will
so much
see you
fun.
like right after this because we do have a few gaming. Oh no, you're going now. I forgot. Never mind. Never mind. Thank you for
Amazing.
coming
Thank you.
today's episode. Thank you for watching.
Really
If
Thank
you
you
haven't
for
appreciate
having
watched,
me.
Mhm.
you are more than welcome. To our viewers, thank you for watching another episode of A to the show. Willem, would you like to shout out anything, or would you like to this is your time to let the people
I
know
only
whatever you
have
want to?
one shout out I want to make.
Go ahead.
I want to shout out to my boys from the server Simpus Maximus.
That's our boys and the girl. One
Yes.
girl, 5 boys.
All right.
So no, I noticed. Like we should probably get more like girls and diversify our. We'll discuss this later. 2 cats.
2 cats coming soon. Blueberry
July
dye
4th.
coming soon.
Blueberry dye coming soon.
All of it.
All of it's coming soon, man. We're coming soon.
Mhm.
We're coming back tomorrow.
Next episode's gonna be a great
Done
episode.
stuff
Also,
coming.
Yep.
yes, on the
Right.
upcoming episode. Oh yes, we'll have
Oh.
a Bas Muzennar on.
Oh man,
Oh,
I can't wait
yes.
for that. So
That's gonna be good.
thank you guys, and you've seen episodes. I know you've seen episodes, so you know how we sign out of them.
Yeah,
you
I
know
do.
exactly how we do it.
Hey.
And peace.
Peace.